Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, and joining me on a very special episode, we've got to talk about the return of Matt Holliday, Jackson Holliday. In a way, he was here as a little kid, and now to cap it all off, the full trifecta, the return of Danielle Allentuck to Colorado. What's going on, Danielle?
Not much. I'm so excited to be back.
Yeah, we've missed you here. You've gone on to some winning ways there with the Baltimore Banner. And back in Colorado, and I know you were able to do a little bit of hiking already. You know how to travel really well. How was that, enjoying some of the extra fresh Colorado air?
I mean, you just like forget what the air is like here. The sky is so blue. I just love the mountains. Rocky Mountain National Park is one of my favorite places in the world. So I was really happy that I didn't have to go to LA, a place that's not my favorite baseball city, and I could come to Colorado early and go do all my favorite hikes.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn that the Orioles had not been to LA since like 2016. Like there are still those strange matchups, and you go, yeah, I guess you don't normally see Dodgers Orioles against each other. So, how did you think the Orioles fared there? I know they've been scrapping a little bit over the last month or so, particularly on the road, despite a rather good road record for the full season.
They're just very inconsistent right now. They have so many injuries to so many key people. They got out of that LA series probably as you would expect from the way that they're playing right now. They won one game, which was big for them, and that was on the day when it was, a guy who they had DFA'd earlier this year and then brought back, Cole Irvin. So not their strongest starter, and he was able to get the job done for them. That was the game that they won. The next game, Corbin Burns, who has not been pitching like Corbin Burns this month, didn't do great that day. And last night they didn't get the big hit, which has just been their problem for the past 2 months. So I just from watching this team every day, I was not surprised how they played, but I think that getting at least one win there was big for them.
Yeah, and maybe they're getting some of their bad spell, their bad stretch out of the way now. I know they got in really late last night, going from LA to Colorado, you're already going to lose an hour of time, and then that late flight with the late game. So I don't know if we'll get batting practice today on Friday. We'll preview the series in a little bit. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the state of the Rockies here the last year and a half, 2 full seasons since you left? I imagine it's probably gone similar to how you may have even predicted it would have gone.
So I left last May of 2023, and I was looking at the roster yesterday, and I probably only know half the guys, which is just wild that it hasn't been that long. It's only been a little over a full season since I left, and they've had that much turnover. So that was really shocking to me. But I mean, last year you knew they were going to lose 100 games. You knew it from the start of spring training, which I did cover for them. This year, it just sort of seems like more of the same. I mean, I haven't been there every day to kind of figure out what direction they're trying to go in right now, but it's not entirely clear from an outsider's perspective, nor has it been the last couple of years. But they have these guys who are locked up for these extensions and these young guys, and that's about it from an outsider's perspective that they have going for them. So I'm intrigued now that they have some of these higher draft picks where they go from here, but it's kind of exactly played out as I thought it would.
Yeah, that's a common comment from people all around baseball is it doesn't seem like there is maybe a true direction. As you said, everyone's locked up and everyone's in place. And while some of the pieces change, and you're right, a lot really in the last year and a half, you basically have a core unit that continues to come back year after year after year. A couple of them will swap in and out. And maybe those core pieces are a little bit better right now with the ascension of Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar. It still is the same group year after year after year. So you're right. Probably not a surprise to you and a lot of other people. Second consecutive 100-loss season. And attendance, also probably not a surprise for you to see how well the Rockies are doing. Now, attendance has dipped by about 71,000 since last year, about a little over 1,000 per game. That ranks 22nd in terms of changed attendance. Mets have had the biggest change for the worse. But like you said, you come out to Colorado, which a lot of people do. It's a great tourist city, and it's a lot of folks aren't originally from Colorado, so they're going to show up to a couple of Rockies games. They're also going to show up to a couple games of their favorite team. It really does seem like this organization, or at least attendance at Coors Field, is very much recession proof.
Yeah, I mean that's what I always thought. I mean Denver was a transplant city. I mean we're both transplants. Let's be real. Like you're from New Jersey, I'm from Maryland originally. So when I moved out here, I didn't have any allegiance to any Colorado sports teams at the time, and neither did any of my friends. I didn't have a single friend who's actually from Denver. So they would always want to come to games when the team from their hometown was there. My roommate was from Wisconsin. She wanted to come watch the Brewers. So that to me always made, no matter how bad the Rockies were playing, people still went to games. And like you said, there's people who fly into Colorado, stay in Denver for a night or two, and then go up to the mountains and they catch a game while they're down here. I actually met a bunch of Orioles fans yesterday who were doing that. So in that case, I mean, that is surprising that the number has gone down that much for Coors Field, but they're still great attendance. I think they may even be better than the Orioles, honestly.
Yeah, that is strange to think about. And, Orioles, a team that's, in and around the best in the American League as far as record is concerned. And you say, oh, man, Orioles fans are going to take over Coors Field. I don't actually know that that's necessarily going to be true. I don't know that Orioles fans travel well. The fan base has obviously taken a hit over how poorly they've played. But you're saying that there's going to be a ton of orange out there this weekend, huh?
So Orioles fans travel ridiculously well. We'll be at the airport in Baltimore getting ready to go to an away series. Entire flight, Orioles fans. It is crazy. It happens every single time. And there's definitely some cities that are more popular than others. Tampa's a big one because they have Sarasota, which is their training facility in driving distance of there. New York's always a big one, Boston. But, they haven't been to Colorado in forever. So I would expect there to actually be a decent amount of fans. And for Rockies fans who don't know, the way you can tell, aside from the orange, which is bright and obnoxious, is during the national anthem, they will shout D-O. And that's how you know how many Orioles fans are in attendance.
Oh, say can you see? There you go. O's. Which, for people who don't like how some folks respond and react to the national anthem, that's equally as disrespectful if you really want to break it down. But now's not the time or place. Danielle, let's talk about these Orioles and kind of go back a little bit. Let's look back at where they were to get to this place. And it's kind of easy to say that, hey, their rebuild has worked, but not all teams who were tanking were able to do it properly. I'm just curious, how much does that come up or get discussed by Mike Elias and the front office? And do fans recognize how important that decision was, however difficult it was at the time?
So fans most certainly recognize, the decisions that the Orioles made, and I think the difference between the Orioles and the Rockies, and I'm sorry to offend Rockies fans, is when the Orioles were really bad, they had really good prospects that everybody kind of knew they were coming. They had Jackson Holliday and Adley Rutschman and all these other guys, eventually Jackson Holliday and Kobe Mayo and all these other guys who, were top 100 prospects. At one point, they had, I believe, 10 top 100 prospects in the country. So while they were really, really bad for 3 seasons, 300 lost seasons, there was at least that little bit of like, okay, at least they're drafting well. At least there's that hope that these guys are coming up. And, you look at when Adley Rutschman debuted in 2022 and just the course of this team just changed completely. And they've had 2 other top prospects since then, Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday. I think they're about to have another one, or Samuel Basayo, who's a 20-year-old who just got promoted to AAA. So they have just been a really good drafting team, and now they're starting to sign international prospects well, which is what Samuel Basayo is. And so all these factors combined have just, contributed to the success that you're seeing now from them.
And it was a strategic approach. I look back on the Astros and Cubs, who were the first teams to really say, hey, if we're not going to be good, we might as well be bad, because being in the middle is virtually pointless. And the Rockies lost a ton of games from 2012 to 2015, and they thought they were going to be good. And the Cubs, for the same 4-year period of time from 2011 to 2014, only lost 1 more game. So you had a team that was strategically tanking to be bad in order to get better and win a World Series, which they did, and another team in the Rockies who were just as bad, and they were trying to be really good, And so they didn't get the same benefits that teams like the Cubs, Astros, and now the Orioles did. I'm
Well,
also curious.
one thing the benefit for the Orioles right now is manager Brandon Hyde was on the Cubs coaching staff during that time. General manager Mike Elias was part of the Astros rebuild. So they have been through this before, which I think is what really helped their turnaround now.
That's such a great point too, because I was just talking with someone. Marlins were in town, and we were talking about the fact that it seems like another rebuild for the Marlins. But now you have someone in place who is very talented at rebuilding a roster on the cheap in Peter Bendix, who comes from one of those winning organizations like the Tampa Bay Rays. And so when you have really great and bona fide baseball people in charge who have that track record of success, like in Baltimore and now possibly in Miami, you're more likely to have that kind of quicker turnaround and get things on the right track.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Brandon Hyde, because I was curious that he was a part of two of the three 100 loss seasons. Buck Showalter there in that first one, and I know Houston during their tanking they dumped Bo Porter. The Cubs went through three different managers in 4 years before handing the team over to Joe Madden. How is it that the Orioles decided to stick with Brandon Hyde, and how has it actually worked out so well for both parties?
Yeah, it's you're right. It's very rare that they decided to stick with him, and I think a main reason that they did was the unexpected success they had in 2022. The Ray from May on, the rest of that year they had a winning record, and part of that was because Rushman and Henderson debuted that year, but also a lot of it was just the way Hyde managed that team. He didn't have a lot of talent besides those couple guys at the time. So I think in the Orioles' point of view was he earned the chance to see the rebuild through and see it around. We saw that last year, leading him to the playoffs. This year, his job has come into question more, mainly by fans, not by anybody internal, as far as that I've heard. But he is a really big fan of, treating every game like it's the most important game in the world, which I don't think is a bad thing. But he will make a switch in the fourth inning if a pitcher is coming in to get a left or right-handed bat into lineups and switch things up like that. And sometimes it plays out, and sometimes it falls apart. And I think that because of that reason, people are like, you just have, if a player's hot, if he has 2 hits, let him stay in. You don't always have to go matchup based, but he is very, very matchup based. So I'm curious how that continues to play out, especially if the team, continues this inconsistent trend that they're on now. But I don't think by any means his job is in jeopardy right now. I think that they trust him. They've seen what he's done the last 2 years, and there are a lot of other factors right now to blame for the way the team is playing.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have a Mariners situation where they got rid of Scott Service there. They were falling out of contention. Orioles are still there, so his job, as you said, is definitely safe. Orioles 12-13 in July, 12-14 so far in the month of August. I know it's kind of a delicate balance, but how do you think they might manage the pushing for the division, trying to earn that first round bye, with also, easing into the final month just a little bit to stay that much more fresh in October. They did that a little bit in 2023, or they dealt with that situation last year. How do you think they might address that this year?
So I think it's really helped them that the Yankees are also inconsistent right now. I think they're only a game and a half behind the Yankees right now, last time that I checked, which is really nothing. And they have a 4-game series to end the year, which will be, crucial as you run down this. So I think that they're still very much in the division race. I think in the Orioles' favor, I think that they have a lot of guys who could be coming back from an IL soon. The Rockies fans could see Zach Eflin on Sunday coming back from the IL to start. Danny Coulomb, one of their best relievers, could come back. Jordan Restberg, their second baseman. So they're going to have a lot of reinforcements coming, which will give some of these other guys who have been forced to play every day because they have nobody else right now a little bit of rest. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks you see a couple of starters getting a start off. Corbin Burns did not have a good August, but he has made every start this year on schedule. And he pitched in the All-Star game, and he had twins. So he's flying back and forth to Arizona all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised, with an off day coming up, they just skip a turn because he's one of the most important, if not the most important guy on the team right now. So I think you'll see a couple extra rest days for Adley Rutschman as you get going. I think they learned a lot from last year about how, they weren't their freshest in the playoffs. even though they had that week off because they won the division. So I think you'll see them learn a lot of lessons from that and kind of take that into the last month of the season.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they do that. As you said, probably learn from last year. Is there anything to learn, anything to know about Gunnar Henderson right now? He's obviously a top tier talent. Him and Bobby Witt Jr., two AL shortstops. That's going to be really fun to watch over the next decade plus. But he's cooled down quite a bit since July. What's the level of concern for him right now?
I don't think there's a huge level of concern. There was a concern maybe a couple weeks ago about his defense. He was making a lot of errors towards the end of the first half of the season, started the second half. I think that's leveled out. I think he's gotten better there. I think this is still for him. This is his first. Last year was his first major league season full. He had 2 months where he slumped. This year is his first time not slumping to start the season. So I'm not entirely surprised he's not going through the best time period right now, but I think he is out of it. I think Adley Rutschman's kind of the bigger concern right now, trying to figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah, it's funny. We say, hey, Gunner's kind of going through some things right now, and yet he's one homer away from tying the Orioles' all-time home run record by a shortstop. And really one visit away at Coors Field from passing both Cal Ripken Jr. and Miguel Tejada with 34 home runs. So he's sitting there at 33. By the end of this weekend, he very well might get himself right and have himself a franchise record.
Yeah, and he's still in the MVP conversation, in my opinion, at least. I don't think he's going to win. I think Aaron Judge is kind of running away with that, maybe Ohtani too. But he's definitely going to receive top 5 votes, and he's 23 years old.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit of concern about Adley Rutschman. What has been going on for those that might not be informed?
So he is a little beat up. He had a sore back that took him out for a couple of days. He was also been hit a couple times by pitches, which this entire Orioles lineup has been hit a lot this year, but particularly him, and he plays a very demanding position as catcher. He has just looked off at the plate for probably the last month and a half, 2 months. His OPS is really low during this time period. I think it's maybe only like 500, 600 last time I checked. So not ideal for him. He just hasn't been producing in the big situations like they need him to.
It's funny you talk about, him slumping a little bit, Gunnar going through some issues. Feels like every team has that guy maybe towards the bottom of the lineup that when they come up, you go, all right, maybe you can take a deep breath and compose yourself. But that's the guy you got to look out for the Rockies. It's been Jake Cave. Jake Cave is the man of the people. He's the rally starter for the Rockies. So for the Orioles fans, keep an eye on Cave, because when he comes up, that's when it might go down when you think you're safe. Who's that guy for the Orioles right now? Is it Eloy Jimenez?
Maybe. Not my first answer. I would go Anthony Santander. He's a switch hitter. I don't think he's very well known in the league yet, even though he was an all-star this year. He is, I believe, 3rd in home runs right now. He may have dropped a 4th. I've been in the mountains for a couple of days, so not quite caught up on my numbers. But last time I checked, he was 3rd in the league in home runs. He has just been off the charts this year. He's had a couple of grand slams. He's had a couple of game-winning hits. He's been incredible. Ramon Urias is so hot right now. He is playing third base because they have nobody else to play third base right now. They are that injured right now at the drain field. And he's been great. He has more home runs this month than he had all of last season. So he has been incredible for them. He has been the guy in a lot of situations when nobody else in the lineup is hitting. He's had 2 of their 3 hits that day. So he has been great this month.
Yeah, and I think he just got his 10th home run. Orioles have the most players with 10 or more homers in all of baseball. 9, pretty much 1 through 9, right? Other than guys on the IL, like you said, he's playing third base for Jordan Westberg. So that's a deep lineup. I mean, Cedric Mullins, a guy who some people I think are pretty familiar with. He might have even been on Team USA somewhat recently. So, he's a superstar guy who's having somewhat of a down year. But you got him hitting 7th, and then right behind him, batting 8th, the hometown kid in a way, Jackson Holliday, the return of Jackson Holliday. I don't know if he's officially never been back to Colorado since 2007, since he was a 3-year-old. I imagine in 2018 when Matt came back to play for, the final 2 months of the season, maybe he was in the building and whatnot. But what have you seen so far in the early going of the big league career of Jackson Holliday?
Yeah, I mean, he got off to such a bad start. And he'll be the first one to admit it. I mean, it's very clear just based on the facts that he went, I believe it was 2 for 34 in his first 10 major league games. He came up. There was so much fanfare about him. You know, the media scrum, 8 people deep, just a lot of attention on a 20-year-old making his major league debut. And he couldn't live up to the pressure. You know, he had a really, really bad first 10 games and they optioned him. And it was very surprising that he got optioned that quickly and that they didn't let it play out. But it ended up being the right decision for him. You know, he goes back down to AAA. He does have a little wrist injury in there, which I think was a nice little reset for him. Nothing serious, just a little minor thing. Comes back up after the trade deadline, hits a grand slam his first game back. His first major league home run helps the Orioles win. Just couldn't write it any better. He had a really good first 2 weeks back up in the majors. After that, he had a 4-hit game. He, you know, had his first multi-homer weekend, just doing great stuff. And he's kind of leveled out since then. But he's still, you know, doing so much better than he was first time around. And defensively, this is his first year playing second base ever. So that's been a little bit of adjustment. But I have seen so much progress from where he is now to where he was in spring training at second base. So he's come a long way defensively.
Yeah, I was thinking that I was curious about that hype. Like, is it just more national hype, and then locally there hasn't been as much pressure? And I imagine, again, depending on where you're looking, there probably is that hype and there is that pressure. But in a lineup where you're surrounded by guys, and now you're hitting eighth, I imagine that he's settled in. He's like, yeah, this isn't the Jackson Holliday show. This is the Baltimore Orioles, and I'm a cog in that system. For having that kind of success, I recommend everyone to go check out a wonderful article that you wrote, Danielle. It's fantastic. The stories of the stories of Jackson Holliday's childhood as told by his father's teammate. You can check that out over on the Baltimore Banner. Great work as always from you. So we'll get a chance to talk to Matt. He's going to be going today, this afternoon. We'll have some of that video up on the Rockies Insider on YouTube. Jackson will be talking inside the clubhouse. Well, Ethan, is there going to be a press conference from Ethan? I haven't heard about that yet. Is he going to is he going to do like a LeBron decision kind of show? Like, I've decided here's where I want to play, and I don't care if they're the 7th overall pick. Obviously, he can't do that. But that will be interesting to see that if maybe the Rockies get the 1st overall pick, or even or the 2nd or the 3rd, if a team doesn't want to go ahead and pay that big bonus to Ethan Holliday, if he could end up in Colorado. That would make for quite a yet another interesting story for the Holliday family and the Colorado Rockies.
Yes, it would. And they say he could be a number 1 pick, you know, first brothers to go both number 1. So be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, doing a Manning brothers kind of thing. They're going 1st overall. That's neat. Have you seen Ethan around? Like, he's bigger. Like, he's built a little bit more like his dad, apparently.
He is. Yeah, he is definitely bigger. I think he's already taller than Jackson. Saw a lot more in the beginning when Jackson first came up. Haven't seen him much since then, but, you know, he has his own baseball to play and school and all that jazz. So can't be around every day.
Is there a name for that cutout in left field? Like, I don't know if it's been given any kind of name. We know in Coors Field, there's the Breitich barrier out in right center. That's preventing balls. So this is the reverse. This is also preventing home runs, I should say. It's not the reverse. It's almost the exact same thing, but instead of a wall, they just have a clobber cave. You could use that if you want. That's what I've come up with, the clobber cave. Just balls go in there to die and are outs. Is there a name for it yet?
We call it Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
I didn't come up with it. It was before my time, but it's just kind of stuck.
Yeah, that's interesting out there. But, I mean, Gunners, he went opposite field, I think, once that way, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. And Adelaide's gone opposite field too.
Couple random things. Orioles just claimed Forrest Wall off waivers. Well, it remains to be seen if we'll see him this weekend. But it was kind of interesting, and I know you'll like this, Danielle. Jesus Tinoco came back with the Marlins, came by to say hi to Buddy and some of the coaching staff. He actually got the win on Thursday. That was his first big league win. He gets it at Coors Field as a member of the Miami Marlins. So I don't know what Forrest Wall's got left in his bag of tricks. He already has a homer in his career. Maybe he'll get his first triple, his first walk-off hit for the Orioles, but it's one of those stories where, again, it'll either come back to bite the Rockies or, you know what, as Bud would like to say, that's baseball. Those things happen.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked about the power in the lineup. Let's get into the pitching matchups. Austin Gomber versus Albert Suarez on Friday. Saturday, Feltner versus Dean Kramer. And then Sunday, it's going to be Cal Quantrill against to be announced, but it does seem like, as you've kind of hinted at, Zach Eflin probably coming off the IL to make that start on Sunday. So not three of their most noteworthy pitchers going in Colorado. They're, again, this is a great team. This is a first place kind of club.
Flores has the best starter ERA this season, better than Corbin Burns.
Yeah, so they're not names like people are. Hey, I want to see Grayson Rodriguez or maybe even Zach Eflin or Corbin Burns. But right, the numbers are actually there for these guys. It's a really good squad. I mean, right now there's an entire rotation on the IL between Eflin, Cobb Radish, John Means, Grayson Rodriguez, and Tyler Wells. So injuries are a part of the game. Like, I think a lot of people will overlook that when they see the Rockies are going to lose 100 games in consecutive years and point to, the loss of two stalwarts in the rotation in Senzatella and Marquez. But every team has to deal with these kind of injuries, and the Orioles are right there with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I don't want to say disaster injury-wise, but it's just been a awful year for them. They've had 3 of their starters in season-ending surgery in the same week. There's only so much you can do to replace those guys. And Albert Suarez, who will be pitching tonight, is one of those guys who stepped up when they needed him. For those who don't know him, he debuted for the Giants in 2016, pitched a little bit for them in 2017, decides to go overseas, goes to Japan, goes to South Korea, gets injured in South Korea, so he gets kicked off of his team, comes back to the U.S., and the Orioles sign him to a minor league deal. And all of a sudden, he is their best starter, their most consistent guy for them. So he is, to me, AL Comeback Player of the Year, and he has just been incredible for them all year long. So consistent.
Yeah, you definitely like stories like that. Craig Kimbrell, the opposite of Comeback Player of the Year. Who's in the 9th now? Is it Yainer Cano? I know Felix Bautista, another one of those injuries you're kind of alluding to there, done for the year. Who's in the 9th, and are you going to be a little bit worried to see how it kind of plays out? Because you've seen a lot of games get crazy here at Coors Field.
So Anthony Dominguez, who they traded for at the deadline from the Phillies, is they won't officially call him their closer, but he's the guy who's been getting the ball in the 9th.
All right, Danielle, go ahead and plug away. Thanks for joining me. Everyone's really excited to have you back this weekend, more so than the Holliday guys. Like, who cares about them? Danielle's coming to town. So go ahead and plug away. Let folks know where they can catch all of your Orioles content.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at D_Allentuck, and then on the BaltimoreBanner.com.
That's good stuff right there. The Rockies Insider Podcast. Leave a review, rate, comment. We love that. Same thing on YouTube at Rockies_Insider and at Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB. Danielle, appreciate the momentum you've given me here. But, as nobody other than me likes to say, that momentum is only as good as my next show. So I will talk to you then.